All right, we are going to go ahead and get started here. So, hello everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you're joining us from. Thanks for joining us today for our webinar. Yes, now you can innovate through configuration instead of code. My name is Matt Johnson. I'm a part of the Alliances team here at Caspio. I lead the enablement efforts for all of our partners worldwide. We want to make today's session a fun and interactive experience for everyone. So go over to the chat, say hi, drop us a comment, let us know where you're checking in from today. Throughout the webinar, please make sure to use the Q&A button to ask questions throughout the event. We'll make sure to have plenty of breaks to cover all of the questions as they come up. But before we get going here, wanted to just run a quick poll to get some interaction going on here on when you want to make a process change, where do you start? We can see if you're thinking about technology or if you're going to work backwards. See what sorts of responses we're going to get here. Give it another couple seconds before we close it out. End it here in a few seconds, and then we'll see the results here. All right, so I think we can share the results to see what we have here. All right, so looking like a lot of the responses are, maybe starting with technology versus working backwards or reviewing that process. But I know Steve will have a lot of great content to talk about for this. That's great here. So thanks again, everyone, for being here. We have a information-packed webinar, so I'll quickly go over the agenda and then we'll get into the content. So we are proud to co-host today's webinar with our partner Fyndera. I'll start by kicking things off, sharing a quick introduction of Caspio, and then I will turn things over to Steve Bennett, who is the founder and Chief Innovation Officer at Fyndera. Steve will go over some information around Fyndera and the services that he can provide, and then jump into some great content around digital transformation and innovation. And then he'll close up the session here today by doing a quick demo of an application he has built on the Caspio platform. Just want to remind everyone to ask questions throughout the webinar. Please use the Q&A button at the bottom of the window, and we will get through all of those questions. We'll also be sharing a recording of today's sessions with all of the attendees once it's completed. So let's go ahead and get started. Here at Caspio, we believe in no code, no compromise. Just because you're using a low code, no code platform doesn't mean you have to compromise in what you are trying to accomplish. So just a quick primer for those who are new to the no code, low code space. These are custom development platforms that leverage visual interfaces and tools to build and modify applications. Even simpler, people with zero programming knowledge and experience are able to create custom applications by clicking, not coding. So low-code platforms can provide you with a wide variety of benefits, but here are some of the most important ones. First, you're able to accelerate your application development by up to 20 times, therefore reducing your project cost. You're able to expand your talent pool to include junior and non-technical resources, business users, or as we like to call them, citizen developers. So you're no longer dependent on scarce, highly technical and highly expensive resources. Third is that you're able to actually focus on the application development and leave the hosting and security to the platform. Therefore, you're able to reduce your technical debt and overall maintenance of your application over its life cycle. And finally, you're able to be truly agile and align your C-suite, IT, and the lines of business so all departments are on the same page and heading in the same direction. Here are some of the essential features of low-code, no-code platforms. The best low-code tools provide a guided development process that allows those non-technical business users, citizen developers, to follow simple wizards that guide you through the software development process and ensure you're using best practices. I like to think of this as the guardrails. Keep you in bounds, keep things simple, and keep you out of trouble. Your low-code platform should have cloud infrastructure that provides enterprise-grade security and allows you to scale your application to your needs. This comes along with powerful data management capabilities, integrated online dashboards, and database tools that mimic the look and feel of Excel, so it's scalable, easy to use, and tightly integrated across the platform. They allow for secure, flexible user management and access management capabilities, ideally paired with your user directory through single sign-on, giving you full control of the secure access to the correct application views for both your internal and your external users. You should be able to deploy your application quickly and easily from your own external and internal web properties. And last but not least, they provide you with easy to use visual development tools to develop the components and modify your application. These are those point and click tools, drag and drop functions to create forms, reports, views, workflows, and everything else. So needless to say, Caspio provides you with all these features and more. Caspio is still the only no-code platform that provides a fully integrated cloud database, unlimited app users and developers, and standards-based extensibility. Just to recap those features and benefits in greater detail, we allow for unlimited app users and developers. Therefore, we're not penalizing you as you grow with us. We provide enterprise-grade infrastructure running on AWS and Microsoft SQL Server. With us, we like to say you build once and then deploy anywhere. You can embed your Caspio app seamlessly on any web property with a couple of clicks. We provide industry-leading security and compliance with HIPAA, ISO, SOC, GDPR, and other regulations. You can customize, expand, and integrate your applications with a wide variety of other enterprise applications through robust integrations. And finally, extending Caspio apps is easy using standards such as HTML, CSS, JavaScript, SQL, and REST APIs, so that you don't have to learn any proprietary languages. This last point is very important, as Caspio combines the best aspects of no-code platforms with pro-code developers like Fyndera. Unlike simple no-code app designers with limited extensibility, Caspio allows you to use pro-coders to develop applications that are tailored to your needs, similar to traditional development, but at the speed of SaaS applications or faster, while avoiding the limitations of packaged software. It's this flexibility that has let us win over 15,000 customers worldwide of all sizes and across all verticals, including some of the famous logos you see here. Many of these organizations started using Caspio with one use case in mind, but upon realizing the power of the platform, they were able to scale it across other functions and departments, ranging from sales and marketing to finance and operations. So before I turn it over to Steve, check and see if we have any questions. Doesn't look like we have anything currently. So we're going to run one more poll here before I get to pass it over to Steve. So this poll is, what are the processes, workflows, or collaborations that you wish you could digitize using technology? Give it another minute here to see if we're going to get a bunch of good responses here. All right, I think we can close this out in 3, 2, 1. Let's see our results here. All right, a wide variety of answers here, kind of pretty much everything. So I think this is a great segue into wrapping up my presentation. And so it's my pleasure to introduce Steve Bennett, the founder and chief innovation officer over at Fyndera. So Steve, over to you.
Hi, Matt. Thank you. Thank you for that introduction. And I'm really glad to be here today. I just want to say thank you to those who joined, taking some of your valuable time to spend with us today. Hopefully, we'll give you some takeaways that will add some value for you. Fyndera is analysts and artists. We are analysts and artists. Design thinking is sort of our native language, and we love to use data to help inform strategy, operations, and tactics to move the proverbial dial. I just want to give a shout out. I can't thank William. William is on this call, and Rebecca for the help that they've given to Fyndera so far to help make this platform a reality. Where did Fyndera come from? Like a lot of people, I really don't like to talk about myself very much, but I love to talk about my work and this small but mighty company, Fyndera. And so my story is the Fyndera story is part of my story. So I was born in a small Midwestern town, and my parents were civic role models. And made an impression on me and has influenced my life to this day. I think being engaged in your local community, in your local government, nonprofit, and volunteering is a very important part of our civic duty. So that's been a part of this journey so far. I went to graphic arts school, which led to a career, my first career role in managing a printing and graphics function for a commercial insurance company, Universal Underwriters, later known as Zurich. And that was really one of the first digital transformations that I was involved in. We didn't really think of it that way at the time, but the core business was expanding, and it was also a time of technological transformation in the graphic arts industry. So that confluence was my first experience with the digital transformation, and that segued into a role in IT, which eventually led to a role on the business side in the underwriting transformation, quality assurance, predictive modeling, and statistical analysis. And therein lies the confluence of the art and science of analysis. And I really got interested in data visualization, and that was kind of my segue into the data science space. Again, along the way, having involvement in local nonprofits and local government, municipal government, assisting, I noticed that these organizations were missing some pretty big opportunities in terms of seeing and understanding their data, and that it was kind of hampering their ability to really fulfill their mission the way that they could. So during that time, I found some willing departments, park departments, public works departments that experimented and worked with me on some data projects. And it proved out the notion that there was a huge opportunity here to help these organizations. So that's really when Fyndera was hatched. And the idea was to ultimately use kind of a shared platform of a design factory to kind of change the economics of innovation for local governments and civic organizations. However, we had no paying customers, so I took those skills to, pardon me, we have a flyover there. I took those skills to the Federal Reserve, first in Kansas City and then on to the Board of Governors in Washington, D.C. And for a person interested in public policy and innovation and data, that was a remarkable experience, and I really enjoyed the ability to affect public policy directly and indirectly in those roles. Now, today, Fyndera is fully dedicated to this civic and fintech space to, again, change the economics of innovation for civic organizations primarily. since we self-fund all of our own projects and our innovation pipeline has some very interesting projects in the early development, we also offer our services to commercial clients like you on the call. So we would love to come alongside and help you, work with you or for you on projects along the nature of what we're going to talk about today. So we think it's all about data and decisions. Really, it's all about people and the decisions that they make in data. But good data generates information. Information shortens time to insight. Insight is the fuel for decisions, and quicker and better decisions generate economic lift. Caspio is just one of the tools that we use to help in this space. But it's a very good one, and it helps us satisfy our appetite for data. So when we talk about decision making with data and informing decisions, we just want to give you a couple examples of what that looks like. A very simple example here. This is not Caspio, by the way, but this is to demonstrate how you can use data to help support and inform awareness and decisions. This tool was built as a demographic benchmarking, which allows the user to identify the source data, by the way, is Bureau of Labor and Statistics, to select an industry that's most like your own. In this case, we're looking at business and financial operations. Then enter your own values, and it will output an overlay for you to see a comparison to that benchmark. So it's just a simple, lightweight way to use authoritative data and compare your own circumstance. This next example is a little more sophisticated, and this is an employee attrition predictive model that we came up with. It's highly predictive in this case of it provides a risk score for the likelihood that an employee will turn over. In this case, we could use this starting point model and tune that to your organization and your data and help provide something like this for you. All right, so there's a lot on this next slide. I'm hoping this is a valuable takeaway. I think we have a diverse audience on the call. So it may be more or less novel or valuable to you, but I find that even large organizations sometimes don't have the coherence that they could have around how they think about their data and how it applies to the business, the economic side of things. So we put together this conceptual model. This is not proprietary. We've assembled some great frameworks and some great thinking out there together to help kind of guide how you might think about an analytics practice or getting the most value out of your data. We think of it in terms of the agility and how you take work in and process that work, how you actually make your decisions, solve problems, get to root cause analysis, how you develop insights with your data, and don't spin your wheels around that, form good hypothesis and generate useful output. And then finally, a service management component, thinking that a lot of the tools that we build and resources that we make, they look a little bit like software. You're going to have users, you're going to have user access and user support, version control. So while a full service management model may be a little bit of overkill, you can kind of cherry pick the elements of that and right size it for your organization. But just within these components, we like GTD, Getting Things Done, The Art of Stress-Free Productivity, is a book by David Allen. I think the first edition is maybe 20 some years old now. This is really based on the lean principles. So if you have an agile project management methodology in your organization, just stick with that. You've got this component. If you don't have something going, I suggest that Getting Things Done, GTD method, is a gift that you can give your organization and your employees in their personal lives. So that's a method intaking work and demands, prioritizing them, committing them to a trusted system, and working through a backlog. Again, it looks a lot like the modern agile approach, but it's really written as more of a personal work management idea. We have used this on various teams where we didn't have an agile framework in place, and it allows for a common vocabulary and language and coherence, cross collaboration, as do these other kind of frameworks. Kepner-Tregoe is a problem solving and a decision making framework that originated in the 60s. So again, a time tested model that really helps one and an organization separate, clarify concerns and priorities, and really get to the bottom of a root cause analysis, make very solid decisions based on objective criteria, and then helps you protect your decisions through a potential problem analysis, risk management around that. It's doubtful that when this model was originated, that they contemplated the use of data within this model, at least as we know it today. But the steps and the components of this framework are highly aligned with the same thing that you need to do for effective data analysis. So again, if you have a decision framework in your organization, insert that here. If you don't, take a look at Kepner-Tregoe and some of the other decision frameworks that are out there. The important thing is that you have some consistency, predictability, and reliability, that people can share a common language around how you make decisions. The next component we've labeled insights, and it's centered around CRISP-DM, which stands for the Cross-Industry Standard Process for Data Mining. This originated again in the 90s as more and more non-statisticians were endeavoring to gain insights out of data mining. And so practitioners and leaders recognized that there was an absence of any kind of standards around that process. So a consortium came together and formed the CRISP-DM standard, which is largely very similar to its original form and extremely useful. It is in its own right a bit of an iterative or agile kind of process. It fits nicely with some of the other elements that we're talking about here, but really helps you and your organization and your leadership see, understand, and hold accountable to the economic value that you're trying to get out of this data work. On that note, I want to acknowledge Maida S. Brown, who is part of that consortium, and she's the author of Data Mining for Dummies, which by some measure is a little bit of a dated book, but there are great insights in there. It's a great coverage of the CRISP-DM model and other great insights in there. So Maida is one of my favorite data person's name. I think that's amazing. And she reminded us that when Facebook changed its name to Maida, that she was the original Maida. So I acknowledge that. And one more quick point on the economics of data. If you're really interested in the economic side, I want to recommend that you follow Bill Schmarzo. He's done a lot of excellent work on the economics of data. He has a hypothesis canvas that will help work through how to focus your questions, your answers, and the data work so that you're getting economic value out of your data, and how to monetize and reuse that data for value. So Bill Schmarzo is another great resource there. And then finally, we nod to the ITIL, Information Technology and Information Library. This model was generated by the British government and is widely used in IT shops around the world today. And again, it's very broad and deep in terms of the coverage for a full life cycle management of an IT service. It may be more than you need. So I'd say cherry pick those pieces and grow into it. But if you are working with your IT shop, it's a pretty good chance they're using this model or something similar. And it's, again, good to plug into that and have a common vocabulary and expectations. Okay, So, my mom was famous for what she called word pictures. She could communicate in a way that helped you visualize what she was trying to describe. So, I like to do that also. And here we've depicted a 2x2 that we've labeled "How do you fly?" So, if you think of your business as flying, the axis here is decision sophistication from bottom to top and data sophistication from left to right. Are you grounded? Do you have low sophistication in your decisions and data? Stable glider, maybe you have good data, but not very sophisticated decisions. Fly by the seat of your pants. Maybe you have a few stars or very knowledgeable people in the industry that are adept at making quick decisions, good decisions, but it's all in their head. It's not scalable. It's not reusable. And you have a dependency on individual decision makers. We like to think about flying by instrument, where you have both high sophistication in your data and in your decision-making processes. So we call that fly by instrument. And for every organization in this sense, the idea would be find ways to go up and to the right. One point on this is this may not be ubiquitous across your organization. So you may find pockets or divisions or areas of your organization that are in different quadrants, and that's okay. In fact, it's really good to know that so that you don't try to paint something with one brush, one big broad brush. It's good to look at individual use cases and organizational units. But our team has developed some starting point transformation strategies that we can work with you and take a look at symptoms and indicators that will translate into a transformation strategy that you can begin to move up and to the right. And we would love to talk to you about that if that's something that draws your interest. All right, so this low code, no code space has been going on for a while. We've been a Caspio customer for over 10 years, and Caspio preceded us. So in 2014, Gartner recognized this phenomenon as a critical mass, and so they gave it a name, a label, and a nice diagram here, infographic. They called this bimodal development, and this I love this graph because it depicts a couple key simple ideas about the rate and potential of change from low to high, and excuse me, I need to move this window, and the degree of appropriate governance from low to high. And they've described here the mode 2 and the mode 1. The mode 2, is systems of innovation. And the mode 1 is systems of record. So you might think of kind of your enterprise systems, very critical that the data is correct, that the uptime is there, meeting service levels. We don't want to break those systems, but they're hard to change. They're slow to change, and it's hard to socialize new possibilities with that because of the nature of the operations around that. And that's how it needs to be, and it must be. Well, with mode 2, tools like Caspio, systems of innovation, they are exploratory and nonlinear, emphasizing agility and speed. And here you can put these in the hands of business people, managers, power users, and they can really explore possibilities and demonstrate, get rapid feedback. And the other thing I like about this graph is that it shows, I think this is a proper relationship where you cast a wide net in your systems of innovation. And then as you promulgate those outputs or what you've made into the systems of record, it becomes narrower and narrower. So it needs to meet, governance requirements and criteria, and needs to support the safety and soundness of the systems of record. So and the converse is true. The systems of record shows a very small aspect of the exploratory and innovative piece. So I really like the way this diagram depicts that. It shows how it can be harmonious, and they are not dichotomous, they are complementary. And in the middle here, we see systems of differentiation. And this is where we can really try new things and look different than anything you've seen before. So again, in 2014, Gartner came up with this. It's been going on longer than that. I want to say even the Web 3.0 environment that we're in today is a reflection of this, where we're given tools to create things. We author the content. This is all kind of in line with this notion. So one of my favorite sayings is one size fits no one. If we were to work with you and take a look at your use case and it didn't seem for whatever reason that Caspio was a fit, we're going to be honest with you. We're going to tell you that it is not a perfect fit for every single use case. It's more broadly suitable and finds its way to specific use cases through having that development environment and capability. But here are some common use cases and categories that we came up with so that you can think about some of the business drivers within those categories. It may indicate you have some possible use cases and fit here. But under the automated manual processes, I think we're all familiar with, there's still paper forms out there. Fillable PDFs, if you have that going on, I see a lot of government forms are still that way. Excel files, sometimes that starts out innocently enough and you end up with a kind of a beast of a Excel file that's getting emailed around. Checklists, if you're working off checklists, process triggers, when A completes, you notify B, that's an indication you may have opportunity for some automation. The second category we thought about was rapid prototyping. And this is really what caught Fyndera's attention in the first place. And really today, still to this day, is probably our primary use case. I don't want to set bad expectations, but I want you to realize we have a saying about rapid prototyping. We call it an app in an afternoon. So once you're up and running and familiar with the Caspio environment, it really is that quick to create a simple, basic prototype where you can have users giving you real feedback, today or tomorrow, depending on what else you're working on. But it's very rapid. Similar to that, but a little bit different, we call that a makeovers or mock-ups, where you have an existing app running and you want to think about some possibilities of how you might refactor that or redesign it. And maybe you don't even want to touch the dev environment or the dev code here. You could do a makeover or mock-up type of prototype offline, validate that, and then come back to the development team. Data models. This one caught me by surprise a little bit. At the time anyway. I know Caspio's data management is good. At the time, it certainly was not sold as a data model prototyping solution. But I have found several times Caspio was super helpful in prototyping a data model and flushing out a data model, looking at relationships and views and data transformations, just to prove out a concept of how this data model might work or how it should look. I've done several of those, and there wasn't even an app that we used. We just used the data model capability from the Caspio dev environment. The last category here we call supplemental, and in this case, you might think of it as a kind of a permanent track in your overall IT architecture. In the case of enterprise systems, sometimes you have a large monolithic type of system, and maybe there's a niche requirement for a department or a process that you really don't want to crack open. Customization, you might consider supplementing that workflow of an enterprise system with a Caspio app. Legacy systems, similar, but a little bit different nature here. We're thinking the legacy system is running along fine, but it will never include the data points you wish you had to support analytics or other purposes. So many of the systems based on computing power and storage constraints were just minimized. And so they were designed to pass the fewest data points possible to complete the transaction. Well, in the day of analytics today, that leaves us wanting for data points. So supplementing legacy systems is another good possibility, something you might want to think about. End of life. Sometimes when a application has been targeted for replacement, the investment and the development in that system basically ceases while the resources are dedicated to bringing on the new system. In some cases, that can be months or even years, where the business is expected to just kind of suffer through that period of time. So maybe it's a throwaway app, maybe it's not intended to live forever, but there could be a rational fit for to fill in a gap on an end of life program. And then finally here, we think a little bit about integration. Matt mentioned on one of the slides how you can extend Caspio. We like the APIs, but there's other ways to do it too. But it's a great tool to think about having systems talk to other systems through integration. All right. So when we think about the bimodal operations and low code, no code, Matt mentioned the citizen developers. We like to think about, who are your citizen scientists? And I'll pose this question to you. The term citizen scientist is kind of it's been used several different ways, but one way that's used is to define crowdsourced research. According to Wikipedia, here are a handful of famous citizen scientists from history: Isaac Newton, Florence Nightingale, Ben Franklin, Charles Darwin. And so my question to you and challenge is, if you had someone like this on your staff, maybe an intern or early career professional, would you recognize them? Would you empower them and support them and give them all the tools that they could possibly use to help you? I think your frontline employees are an incredible potential resource for you. So when we think about citizen developers, that's food for thought for you. They are among us, they're everywhere, and we love data. So it's a good match. All right. The next thing I want to do is provide a demo, really two demos. One, I'm going to show you the app out in the wild on the internet that we built. It's a very simple app, but you'll see some of the features and how it looks and behaves. And then I'm going to take you over to the Caspio environment as a developer and show you what you will see, what you'll see there. All right. Whoops, I didn't mean to do that. Sorry about that. Give me one moment. Okay. Can you see my screen okay? All right.
That's good.
All right, so I'm already logged in as a test user here. I've deployed this app using a URL method. I can show you that a little bit later. And I embedded the app in a Google site just so that I could wrap it with some graphics. You can embed your app in any web page. It's very simple to do. So this app is going to take us through a little interview to help us decide. We have a challenge and we want to help us decide. So I've set up this demo. We're going to try to decide where to go on vacation. So our decision challenge, step one, state the challenge. We're just going to say vacation spot and update. That will take us to the next form. And this interview will prompt us. Step two is success criteria. The ideal vacation spot will, and then we put the most important criteria here. We're going to say be within a $1,000 budget. And then we're going to say the next most important criteria is be new to both of us. And the third most important criteria here is can be enjoyed in a week or less. All right. When we update that form, it should take us to the next screen. All right, there we go. Step 3, solution alternatives. By the way, this is simple. We have 3 criteria, 3 options. This could be expanded, and this could also be a component of another app. So I just want you to get the idea of kind of the behavior, the appearance, and those things. So the vacation spot alternatives I've considered are stay home, option 2, go to Disneyland, and option 3, camp at the state park. And you'll notice on this screen, the order is not important. In the last screen, it was important to put those in order of importance. And so then it gives us a nice little rating sheet here, puts it in natural language for us. Decision, vacation spot. If I were to stay home, would it be within a $1,000 budget? And I'm going to answer that yes. If I were to stay home, would it be new to both of us? I'm going to say no. If I were to stay home, can it be enjoyed in a week or less? Yes, I believe. Option 2, go to Disneyland. I've never been and I really want to go. If I were to go to Disneyland, would it be within a $1,000 budget? I don't think so. Not today. If I were to go to Disneyland, would it be new to both of us? That is for sure. If I were to go to Disneyland, could it be enjoyed in a week or less? Let's say, I'm not sure on this. I think I'm going to call it neutral. Might need a week or more. We'll call it neutral for now. Option 3, camp at the state park. If I were to camp at the state park, would it be within a $1,000 budget? Yes. Would it be new to both of us? Yes. If I were to camp at the state park, can it be enjoyed in a week or less? I'm going to say yes. So now we've responded to our options. We'll update that form again. And there we have it. We have a decision analysis that recommends the optimal vacation spot, which according to our criteria and our responses, it looks like we're going camping at the state park. Now, there's a few things I like about this app. It's really simple. Like I say, you can build it out, you can plug it into a larger workflow. You could have more questions, more options, customize those. You could even validate those. So you could have choices. If you have a repeating type of decision, you could have those criteria built in as choices for your users. But just playing with this app, it's a really interesting thing I've noticed. I don't always get the answer that I expected or that I kind of wanted. So it prompts me to go back and look at my criteria, to look at my options. Are those really the only options I have? Are those really the most important criteria to me? Maybe even go back and reframe my question so that it helps me get to a more sort of rational spot. As long as that's an authentic process and we're not gaming it, as long as we're trying to synthesize objective data, I think that's a very good thing. And it prompts what I'd call metacognition, thinking about our thinking. So that's kind of it for that app. I will say one point on this is that this is using record level authentication. So when I log into this, I can only see my records. All right, so next, I want to take you over to the Caspio environment so you can see what that looks like. Let's see, I want to go one step back. This is the top level of the Caspio environment. I have one application in here. To start an app and create an app, it's just that simple. You hit the Create App button, and then you begin to configure the options within your app. So we have the machine demo here. By the way, as an admin, here are the logs that you can see for the activity going on in the environment. So here's your main overview of an app. Again, very simple app. There's only 2 tables in this app. And for right now, I'm going to focus on kind of the aspects of the Caspio and development environment that were used in the app that you just saw. There are 5 data pages used to create this app. And they were all data submission type form data pages, except for the last one, which was a combination report that has graphs and a data table in the report. And there are several different types of charts that you can choose too. Okay, so then just a peek at the data pages, and I want to show you how easy it is to create those. Again, just create. We have these types of data pages: forms, reports, calendars, charts, an HTML page that you can insert HTML or use that for a container. These data pages point to either a table or a view. That's the data source that you use. And I do want to cancel that. And I think I want to go over and show tables real quick. Again, I just had 2 tables here, one that contains the data that we put in through the forms. And then there is a special table here to house the users, and that drives the authentication. The authentication is a special function that you can do. And I think I want to show you that real quick too, because I want to show how simple this really is to create. So we'll do you can do an express authentication through Caspio or custom authentication that allows you to use Caspio data sources, which we have here, or you can use ID services, Google, Twitter, OpenID, and for enterprise or if you have IT help and you want to do a single sign-on, you can also do that. You can use Active Directory, Azure AD, and so forth. There's a lot more in the Caspio environment that are powerful features that I'd love to show you, but those are really kind of the flyover and the features that were used in the decision machine demo that you just saw. So on that, I want to return to our PowerPoint and open the call for questions.
Yes, Steve, we've got one about talking about the logic or weighing the decision. You know, how did those get weighted, or what does that look like?
Sure. I actually have a slide I can show you on that. It's super simple. Well, I think it's simple. And like anything else, it takes a little acclimation with the environment. But once you understand the basics, it's very simple. So over here on the left are the field types that you can choose when you're creating a table and designing that table. And one of those field types is a formula. So within the formula, we had values stored in that field relative. So when we put the options in their order, the first field had a weight, the second field had a lesser weight, and the third field had a lesser weight. So we were able to calculate that automatically on the fly and generate those values that you saw in the end.
Yeah, and so that's something where if we're looking at the different weights, all those fields are coming from a table, and those could be pre-populated. when building the application, or even asked at the start, to come up with those weights on your own. It could be
Correct.
in input form as well.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. Another one, you mentioned extending Caspios with APIs. If you just want to maybe talk on that, about how that might work, or is that something that's difficult to do some of those integrations with APIs?
So again, I would say in the low code, no code arena, I'm going to call this simple. But if you're uh, not familiar with APIs and how they work, you're gonna want to study this just a little bit and figure out how it works. But it is done by configuration. And in this example here, we're showing Zapier, which is a service, an API service. So there are many pre-built APIs, application programming interfaces, or little bits of code that you can grab and stitch together. And for this example, we're showing how a Caspio database can, when a new record comes in, can trigger filling out a PDF form. So in sort of the use case example that we pointed out before, this might be how you would pull this off and automate a PDF, filling a PDF form. So I'd say it's simple. I had to learn a little bit and I had to practice. I had some misfires, but you get your permissions and configurations. It's pretty straightforward and easy to do. And again, Zapier is just one example. There are other services out there as well, and you can make your own. But I'm going to say relatively simple, yes, and powerful. So again, think about what's being developed in the outside world today. It's hard to keep up with. There's new services all over the place that do really cool little things. Blockchain, AI. Most of these are services that you can connect with. So you can literally create a blockchain app using Caspio if you're integrating with the blockchain service.
Okay, cool. Another one here, kind of not related to Caspio, but more on some of the other topics you've covered, is if you're wanting to start your journey to becoming a citizen scientist, are there any other books or websites you might recommend outside of the data for dummies or the getting things done? Is there any other resources that you maybe started with, or maybe a good place to start with for becoming that citizen scientist?
Yeah, in no particular order, there are innumerable resources out there, and they're multiplying all the time. But I found, Kaggle is a data science contest site, and that was a great place to go find data sets and challenges to practice with. That's one resource. There is a data literacy. I'll get the name of that one here before we're done and share that. OpenGov, OpenData.gov, I think it is, hosts multiple data sites, of data sources, public data sources. So, I think first and foremost, it starts with a curiosity and an appetite, and just kind of getting out there and poking around. But I think getting some public data sets, some open source tools, even a trial account with Caspio might be something you want to consider. But I'll point back to be curious and go poke around.
Okay, great. Yeah, and just for all the attendees, I want to let you know, if you got any questions coming out, please make sure to submit them using that button or post them in the chat so we can get them answered here. Yeah, one other thing I wanted to call out, if we're going to wait for a few more questions, is if you're interested in Caspio, interested in talking more with Steve and his team, Steve's information has been on a few of the slides here. Definitely feel free to email him or call him directly. Happy to have any sort of session with you, whether it's informational, learning about what sort of topics you want to talk about, or if you've got a app in mind or a process improvement or innovation in mind, taking those steps to get there and help you solve those challenges.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so it doesn't look like we have any more questions here, so we will go ahead and wrap up here. Definitely a big thanks to Steve and his team at Fyndera. But yes, thank you everyone for attending today. Hope this was very informational for you, and we will look forward to having you on our next webinar. But hope everyone has a awesome rest of their day. So thanks everyone. Bye
Okay.
now.
Thank you
Thank
all for coming.